Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Heather Woolery Lloyd, and we're going to be talking today about some really interesting trends and hot topics in sunscreen.
And I'm Daryl Regal, a clinical professor at NYU as well as UT Southwestern. And we're excited to really spend a little time talking today about some of the misconceptions that are out there about sunscreen. It's pretty amazing. You think with all that data, that's not an issue, Heather, but as we'll see from some of these surveys, some of the data we're going to present, it's still out there and still a problem.
Yes, it definitely is. And definitely, as I am someone who's very active on social media, this is an interesting study that you can see here that was looking at that sun protective content that's on TikTok. This is a really interesting study. And we looked at the content on TikTok as it relates to sun protection. So we looked at the top hashtags for sun protection like sunscreen, SPF, and looked at the top 100 videos and looked at who was creating this content. And the interesting thing, when we looked at these top 100 videos for each of these hashtags, overall, only 17% of these videos were created by dermatologists. So it's something that shows us there's definitely room for improvement when it comes to education online regarding sun protection.
And that's really true. Look at this data. 1 out of 6 of the videos are being created by derms. That means 5 out of 6 are being created by non-derms. And we hear this from our patients because they get so many misconceptions. So some of the comments that occur on these TikTok videos, I could say the moon is made of Swiss cheese and say it on TikTok, right? And that doesn't make it right, but people hear that. I guess there's some validity to it when they hear it. So that's a
Yeah,
real
that
challenge. We're seeing with patients all the time. I'm sure, Heather, you see it too, right?
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think that, what people hear online is what they believe. That's where people search out content. That's where they search out information. That's when someone wants to look something up. Right now, TikTok is just as popular, maybe even be more popular than Google. So it shows us, this study particularly shows us that we really need to be more active online as dermatologists if you like to create content, because we need to really increase the number of videos out there, especially about something as important as sun protection.
So let's go on to the next slide because I think this is a follow-on to our second study now. This was a study done of 5,000 consumers. And to me, this is very exciting because it shows an incredible paradox here, just a total misconnect. If you look at the data, you can see that 78% of people feel that they had a good knowledge about the dangers of the sun. 80% knew that the chances of getting skin cancer increased if you got sunburned. Yet, 2/3 of the people say sun exposure is good for them. Half the people say that a base tan helps protect them from sunburns. And a number of them, as you can see, have had more than one sunburn in the last year. So they know there's a risk, but they're still accepting the risk and saying sun's good for me and I could get a base tan, I could do all those other things that get burned. So it shows there's still a really knowledge gap, if you want to call it that, that's out in the public that we still have to overcome. And part of that's probably driven by the prior study, by the misconceptions that are on TikTok.
Yes, this is, I think, really interesting because as dermatologists, we have to balance when we talk about sun protection. We know that sun protection is so important for our patients, but we also know that there are some benefits to being in the sun. Sun exposure can improve mood, it can regulate, lower risk of depression and so forth. So there are some benefits of the sun, but our patients need to be protected. It's kind of like you need to be, it's okay to go out in the sun as long as you're protected. And there's a little bit of a disconnect with that base tan number, where 49% of people felt that a base tan helped to protect them from the sun. Really, it should be that 100% of people felt that sunscreen protects them from a sunburn. So that is definitely interesting. And we have to balance this because it's not that we're saying sun exposure is bad, but that you need to protect yourself when you're out in the sun.
That's absolutely right. And that's a perfect segue into our third study. We can have the next slide. And we talked about what the public thinks. Interesting enough, this is a study that we did just recently looking at dermatology HCPs, both derms and PAs and NPs, and asking what their perspectives were on sunscreen safety. And what you see from this is kind of interesting, that although almost everybody agreed that the inorganic sunscreens were safe and effective, they strongly agreed with it. About a fifth of the derm HCPs were not sure if the physical sunscreens, the chemical sunscreens, the organic sunscreens, were in fact safe. So that says that even dermatologists are being confused, probably by some of the data, the misconceptions that are out there between directly from watching on the internet as well as indirectly from hearing it from their patients. I mean, I hear that too, and Heather, you probably do too.
I do. And, this is really interesting because it's a strong statement. It's 5% of dermatology ACPs disagreed or strongly disagreed that chemical filters are safe. Now, that's fascinating because we know there's so much safety data. We have decades and decades of safety data on chemical filters. So that number is basically shocking. It is a small number, so that's the good news. But that anyone disagrees that chemical filters are safe is a little bit interesting, especially coming from a healthcare provider.
That's true. And I think part of it may be we have the newer inorganic physical sunscreens that are there that are more effective than the old ones. And these new formulations, in fact, are better protective in UVA than they were in the past. So maybe that's confusing some of the information out there. But to me, this shows there's a knowledge gap, even among our colleagues, about the effectiveness and the safety of these sunscreens and how they stop skin cancer. And it's just surprising to me with all the information we have, with all the stuff we talk about, that misconception can be out there by a fifth or a fourth or so of our colleagues.
Yes, and the interesting thing for me is that a lot of my patients prefer chemical filters because they're completely clear. So for people with darker skin types, even though the mineral sunscreens have also had huge advancements and are definitely much more clear, less likely to give that white cast, chemical filters are 100% completely clear. So for a lot of my patients, that's the only type of sunscreen that they want to use. And, we always say the best sunscreen is the sunscreen you want to put on every single day. So I think it's really important that we establish, and, we hope that dermatologists and healthcare providers in dermatology understand that they really are safe. And for a lot of our patients, it's their preference.
Oh, absolutely. I think what these three studies show me is that there's misinformation out there, and that misinformation has impact both on the public as well as some extent on our colleagues. So to me, I learned from this that maybe we ought to really making our education more focused, more effective to our colleagues and to the public to get the truths out there and get rid of these myths, these urban myths that exist about sunscreen.
I totally agree. Education is always good. The more, the better.
Well, thanks. On behalf of Heather and myself, we appreciate your taking the time and hope you learned something from this interesting information. Thank you.